the Second is a pro-Second Amendment organization. Through good or bad, we're here to help drive and save the NRA from itself, and the Second from the infighting that happens among the Second Amendment supporters. Because without the Second, the rest will fall. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Save the Second or their employers. This show offers commentary on the latest news associated with the NRA and Save the Second's endeavor to promote a strong, relevant, effective, and accountable NRA.
Okay, still going to my ears. Oh my goodness, what wonderful technology, right? Welcome to the Save the Second podcast. This is episode 25. Today is Sunday, October 11th. Man, we are going to talk about the NRA meeting and the members. Why is this thing still going on in my ear? I don't know. Oh,
I don't hear it.
oh, I know why it's going on in my ears now. Sorry. I was listening to the live stream on YouTube. Wow, goodness gracious. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me today currently is Mr. Frank Tait. I'll get myself off of here so you can see Mr. Tait. Yep. Also just joining us is Mr. Rob Pincus. Rob, how are you today?
Pretty good. Let me know if the background noise is too annoying and I'll figure something else out. How you doing,
Understood. Greg? Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, you may know Mr. Rob. If you don't know Mr. Frank Tait is currently the only candidate for the 76th Board of Directors that is campaigning. And, you know, Frank, I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there that don't know anything about you, and this may be the only opportunity for them to learn anything about you. So if you'll take a few minutes and tell them who you are, what you do, all that good stuff, certainly appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Sure. I've been an NRA member since the late 70s, been a life member since 91. I've been an instructor since the early 2000s. I've been a training counselor for about 9 years now. So I've been fully invested in the NRA. I'm a retired software executive. I've been serving on boards of directors for 22 years. I've had roles of board president, treasurer, secretary. I've been on audit committees, search committees, pretty much anything you could do on a board, I've done it. And I am appalled by what I see at the board of directors of the NRA. I fully support the agenda of the Save the Second group. I want to see a smaller board, term limits, meeting requirements. To me, a big part of it is we need to clean house of the grifters who are misusing members' money, and get the organization back to what it's supposed to be doing, advocating for our Second Amendment rights, training and education, and spending the money that benefits the members and not just a few executives and board members. Well, Ron, I think that's kind of enough of a high level. Can't hear you now. No, tell you what, I'm going to jump out and come back.
No, don't
okay.
even worry about it, man. Technology is hard for me. So muting myself, not muting myself. And of course we have Mr. Pincus back. Both Rob Pincus and myself, obviously we started Save the Second, probably 16, 17 months ago, trying to reform the NRA. Rob, there's a lot of folks out there that are just coming to this realization of what's been going on behind the scenes in the NRA. Can you bring people up to speed if they're not aware?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of people all of a sudden, started paying attention with the New York State Attorney General's movement officially to dissolve the NRA. I think that's probably a lot of hyperbole in terms of what the actual goal is and what's actually realistic. But certainly that made a lot more people pay attention. Unfortunately, as happens, every time people start paying attention, as much as it might be, let's make up a number. If there's 1,000 people that say, oh, wow, there really is a problem, it seems like there's also 1,000 people that say, well, wait, this is just an attack from the anti-gun New York State administration. And I get it. Like, that seems true, except the word that's missing there, the word that's wrong there, is just. It's not just an attack from an anti-gun administration. It's an attack from an anti-gun administration that's been empowered by the dysfunction, financial malfeasance, and just general shadiness of the NRA leadership for the last 20 plus years. with the executive committee and many board members being either complicit or complacent. Very, very few board members have really spoken out to change anything. Most of the ones who have spoken out to try to change anything with the Wayne LaPierre regime and the status quo, and really what was a worsening situation for a couple of decades at the NRA. They've either kind of gone into functional silence and sort of just sitting around waiting to see what's going to happen, maybe working in the background in some cases. Others have left the board. They've retired from the board or resigned from the board or simply not ran again because of the problems there. And it's unfortunate because it leaves the members without any real representation inside the building, or at least not any functionally valid representation inside the building. So the members meeting becomes really important. If people go back about 18 months now, or maybe a little less than that, 15 months, the movement that really took hold at the members meeting, and literally at the members meeting, we had Josh Prince was there really spearheading a lot of the efforts, both behind and in front of the curtain, that got members to speak up. And Frank was one of those members actually coming up with a resolution to directly address the issue with Wayne LaPierre. And of course, it was only 15 months ago, but between everything that's happened at the NRA, coronavirus, the civil unrest, the election season we're in, and a lot of the things that have happened in the gun world outside of the NRA issues, it does seem like a long time ago that we, many of us, all three of us certainly stood up on the podium at the members meeting and really tried to hold the board and the executive committee and the leadership accountable to the members. And now we're going to see what happens in Tucson in just a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from yesterday. I don't know that I'm expecting anything earth-shattering, but I certainly do hope we get the opportunity to once again speak up on behalf of concerned American gun owners, particularly concerned NRA members.
Yeah, buddy, time will tell. I'm not sure exactly what to really think about, whether or not we're going to see the NRA board of directors change or not. We'll get into that a little bit more in depth in just a few moments. Joining us also today is Mr. John Richardson. My goodness gracious. We had John on, I think it was like the second or third episode.
Exactly.
Right? Oh my gosh, man. It's so good to see you again. Thank you
Thanks.
so much for joining us. You know what? I think most folks know who Mr. Pincus is, and we've just introduced Mr. Tait. John, can you tell us a bit about yourself? And beyond that, can you try to bring people up to speed on what they missed last year at the meeting of the members?
Yeah, I blog at No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money. I'm also the co-host of the Polite Society podcast. I'm an endowment life member, been a life member for 10 years, plus or minus. Actually joined the NRA when I was 18, kept it going, dropped it, whatever. Joined back in the days when you actually had to either have a life member or an elected official sponsor you for membership. That goes back away. I was at that same meeting of the members in Indianapolis that Rob was speaking about, that had Josh Prince, Adam Kraut, Rob, and a number of others speaking, trying to bring openness, shall we say, to the NRA. That was the same meeting where Oliver North sent a letter to be read because he basically had been deposed by Wayne LaPierre. So I'm hoping to have a resolution for the meeting on succession planning. I think it's very important. It's critical for any organization. And let's face it, Wayne is 70 or 70 plus. And what is the age group that is most at risk with COVID? People over 65. So that's what I'm doing.
And you're doing it so well, man. Your blog is one of my favorite blogs to read. And I mean, you're an excellent writer first and foremost, but I mean, come on, Only Guns, and Money. Come on, it's an amazing name.
Well, it came from the Warren Zevon song, Sin Lawyers, Guns and Money. And when I started it, I was also going to do some stuff on financial planning until my employer found out about it, said, you cannot be doing that. That is advertising. We can't have advertising, blah, blah, blah. So I don't talk about any stocks, any money, stuff like that.
Understood. Well, I appreciate all the coverage that you provide for not only the NRA, but the Second Amendment, advocacy in general, if I could
Thank you.
speak. My goodness. So, gents, yeah, October 24th is the meeting of the members. My goodness gracious, October 24th. I mean, like Mr. Pincus said, that's just less than 2 weeks now. And that's in Tucson, Arizona. The NRA really threw us kind of a curveball, or so I believe, in having a registration system for the meeting of the members. And it's at odds with the bylaws. The bylaws and Article 3, Section 6D says that all members shall have the privilege to attend and be heard at all meetings of the members, yada, yada. So if we're not allowing all members to attend and be heard, what's that to say about the NRA? Now, granted, there's a lot of COVID considerations, like Mr. Richardson just mentioned, but my goodness, it seems like the NRA has tried to violate their bylaws a couple of times here in the recent past with scheduling the annual meeting of the members. The NRA has to have a meeting of the members. Mr. Tait, what do you think about this conflict, this oddity?
Well, this is politically incorrect, but what I'll say is that the bylaws are used to the benefit of the organization and the leadership of the organization. So when the bylaws are, things like don't electioneer, when they shut down the mention of Adam Kraut a couple of years ago, they're going to enforce the bylaws. And when the bylaws are an inconvenience, they just conveniently forget to pay attention to it. So I think they're just going to blame COVID for it and let it go. One thing you've also got to remember with this meeting on the 24th is that we've got the election for the 76th director that actually starts at 8 a.m. on the 23rd. So members can be heard by coming anytime after 8 a.m. On the 23rd, Friday the 23rd, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you. And then again on Saturday up through the end of the members meeting, where they're going to elect the 76th director. And you need to, people that can get to Tucson should be coming and voting. And as far as I know, I'm the only person actively campaigning for that 76th seat.
Oh, you absolutely are. So I went through this week and I checked out the list of the runners-up from the regular election, and there's no candidate besides yourself that has even made mention of the 76th election. And Mr. Richardson previously had obviously the link to Gangster Capitalism, where they discussed Desiree Payne explaining how Paul Payne had electioneered and brought members. I'm sorry, what is it? Some of the folks from the NRA Members Council?
The NRA Members Council of California.
That's it. So do you think they'll be doing the same thing?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so too. And beyond that, boy, the NRA guys, they really tried to throw a curveball to all of us by trying to schedule the meeting of the members the same day as the 2A rally in Washington, D.C. Now, I understand, of course, that that's going to be live. They can't have that. Mr. Pincus, can you bring us up to speed on what's going on there and how they tried to schedule that?
Yeah, there's obviously no overt evidence that those things are connected, but it is oddly coincidental that after the rally date was announced, something like, 10 months after the rally date was announced, they decided they were going to run at the opposite end of the country, by the way, the meeting of the members in Tucson, Arizona on the same day. Now, is it a little bit, I think there has to be some hubris for any of us involved in the rally to say this is why they did it. I, however, can't imagine that if someone raised their hand inside of the NRA inner workings and said, hey, wait a minute, guys, that's the 2A rally weekend. Are we sure we want to do it then? I can't imagine that anybody said, oh, gee, no, let's not do it. I mean, the fact is that most of the voices aligned with the 2A rally are also aligned with reforming the NRA and certainly antagonistic to the continuing presence of Wayne LaPierre. So I don't think that there's any thought that, gee, people we like won't be able to make it if they choose to go to the 2A rally. I'm sure that wasn't brought up in any of the conversations. So whether it was a factor originally or not, one can't imagine, but some at least some handshaking and high fiving and snickering when it became obvious that there was a conflict. As it plays out, the conflict isn't going to be real. It's going to be a virtual conflict because the rally is now virtual. So the hosting of the rally will be live. There'll be a live broadcast, but it's going to take place in the afternoon and evening, depending on the time zone you're in, of the 24th, whereas the meeting of the members starts at 9 a.m. So there's no longer a conflict there. Anyone involved either in pre-recording their speech, we got over 30 great speakers this year. SecondAmendmentRally.com is where you can go to learn more about the speakers, sign up for the direct links to the broadcast and all of that at SecondAmendmentRally.com. You'll see some familiar names on there, including some current and I know at least one current, and I think there's also former board members there, people who are supporting the NRA, people who are very supportive of the NRA as an organization, but obviously a lot of people who are not supportive of the current leadership and who want to see change there. Although that won't be a topic of discussion in any of the speeches that I'm aware of, because we're focused on celebrating and defending the Second Amendment and the rights protected by the Second Amendment, which is kind of what we wish the NRA were focused on instead of all the stuff they are worried about. I will tell you that as far as the bylaws issue go, I don't see how it's not an obvious infraction of the bylaws. I don't see how it's not an obvious concern of theirs, knowing that there's people like us involved in this conversation now in a very loud way. The idea that this can't be serious in their minds. They have to know this is going to be brought up. So why not just make it a virtual members meeting, right? Certainly the technology exists to allow members to attend the members meeting virtually. Traditionally at the NRA annual meeting, the members meeting is broadcast out to the floor and to rooms all around the convention. So the idea that we couldn't have that be a two-way street with Zoom meetings and through any other virtual interface is confusing, right? So obviously they could set up some kind of a gateway so that members could be allowed in and members could be heard virtually at the meeting and avoid the conflict of the bylaws, but they're not doing that, obviously. So that's even a further concern. The fact they're really throwing it in everyone's face that they know it's going to be brought up, they know we're going to make an issue of it, and yet they don't seem to care.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It looks like our NRA president, Carolyn Meadows, and the rest of the officers of the board of directors are still digging in their heels and standing behind Wayne. So Wayne's about to be indicted, after the investigation from the IRS, no doubt about it. The New York Attorney General says that, they had misused $63 million over the past 3 years. And of course, May 22nd of last year, Carolyn Meadows sent out a letter trying to clean up any misconceptions and said that our financial house is in order and all of this garbage. Oh my gosh, it frustrates me so much. They don't even care. We're about to have an indicted CEO / executive vice president, criminally indicted, and yeah, they applaud him. They worship him. It really frustrates me. Mr. John, are you seeing any of the directors or anybody associated with the NRA have cold feet in their worshiping of Wayne LaPierre?
I know a few but unfortunately have to somewhat remain nameless, just so they're not getting getting shot at, shall we speak. Not following the bylaws explicitly right now is about as stupid as you can be. Who is looking over our shoulders at everything but Tish James? And if we don't follow it to the T, she is going to make that an issue. And back to Rob's point about the Second Amendment rally, the NRA unfortunately has a not invented here mindset. If they didn't come up with it, it's like, well, we're really not sure if we want to support it. I mean, we saw it in Virginia with Virginia Citizens Defense League and their lobby day. The NRA, all of a sudden, after that's announced, has a meet your legislators a week earlier, trying to take away from it, which is kind of sad, kind of petty.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, I will say that one of the things that shocked me this week, the whole Q pistol became a matter of contention with the ATF saying, oh, hey, by the way, that's actually a short-barreled rifle. And you had obviously a lot of the gun community come out in support of Q saying, hey, this is this is the ATF just making up legislation out of thin air, legislation that didn't exist, and they're not a legislative body. I was impressed to see that NRA ILA put out a statement and supported Q and chastised the ATF, which obviously is a big change, of course, considering the bump stocks and how they were, in support of the ATF redefining a bump stock as a machine gun. So do you think that the ILA folks are doing something different? Do you think the all of the climate inside the NRA is producing some sort of change? You know what? I'll take Mr. Tait on this. Do you think the NRA is actually changing, or is it just more pacifying the members?
I don't know. I know that particularly around the election, Jason Wimay has been doing a lot with ILA to help people get out to vote. But that's something I think it's aligning with what Wayne wants. I think Wayne is looking to help the president get reelected, and then that's going to be his triumphant exit. Hopefully, exit being the key word there. But if you listen to the podcasts that were about that, it seems that the NRA was involved with this months ago, and it's only when Q went public that the NRA message came out, because they had been waiting for several months. Q was waiting for several months for feedback from the NRA, which makes me think things really have not changed.
Yeah, I'll pose the same question to Mr. Pincus. Mr. Pincus, I know obviously you work a lot in that field and regulatory compliance. What are your thoughts on that?
On the big picture, it does look like this might be an isolated thing against Q, and it has to do with just for everybody maybe not up to speed on it, it looks like it's much more about them not following the convoluted ATF regs on that particular model than it is a broad move against braced pistols. Of course, I always have a problem with the sort of sky is falling, hyperbole or fear mongering that we can get sucked into sometimes, especially if it's used as a fundraising effort by the likes of the NRA. So there's no indication, for example, like as an FFL, I've not gotten stop selling braced pistols order, right? No FFL has. As a manufacturer, I haven't gotten you're not allowed to sell any product with a brace as an OEM product as a pistol. I haven't gotten that letter. No one has. No manufacturers of braces that I'm aware of have gotten any letter that says you're no longer allowed to sell this thing with instructions for mounting it to something designated as a pistol for any reason. So it really does look like this is an active move against Q for not following regulatory practices. Now, the regulatory practices of the NRA around braced pistols are ridiculous. We need clarity on this. And I talked to a couple of different gun rights organizations about that this week. We really do need to be pressing for clarity. And that's what we should be asking the White House for. That's what we should be asking the Department of Justice for, is a blanket statement that braces are fine, attached to things that are pistols, that's fine. However you want to use them, that's all fine. Or go the other way and say, no, we think this isn't okay. And it's that clarity that's going to avoid situations like we had this week. Obviously, we all believe that it should be okay. But if they say it's not, then that's something we can take before the Supreme Court in the future, obviously, if it's an unjust infringement, which I believe it would be, as are most of the ATF regulations. So what we've really got here is a situation of why is the NRA taking the action and position that they took, and is it a big deal? A, I don't think it's a big deal. B, I think they took it because it was the expedient position to take. I mean, if you look at it, the timeline, I think it was actually Gunners of America that put out the call to action first. It made it very easy through their website to reach out to the White House and Department of Justice and your elected representatives on a statement asking for clarity on the issue and for them to rebuke the ATF's action if indeed the action was against braced pistols and not against the technical infraction of Q. And then Firearms Policy Coalition did the same thing. And then maybe a day later, I saw that the NRA had also done it. Now, maybe the NRA did it earlier than that, but as I understand it, it was GOA that did it first, then FPC, and then the NRA ILA came along afterwards and said, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's give people an easy way to reach out to the White House on this. Speaking of getting the president reelected, it is curious that he nor his attorney general have spoken out clearly in defense of gun owners on this issue over the last few days. I get it. It's a busy time of year, but it's also an election time of year. And one would expect that, you know, since he still owes us that $30 million the NRA gave him back in 2016, support that Wayne LaPierre and seems like he'd be paying us back with a statement on this issue.
Yeah, that's a very good point. When especially with the interesting dynamic of the IRS now investigating Wayne LaPierre, which of course the IRS is under the Trump administration. I'm curious on your thoughts on that, Mr. Richardson. You know, I mean, the IRS investigation is probably going to take, 12, 18 months, maybe shorter,
Probably.
depending upon how much they're working with the New York State Attorney General. I'm not sure. I'm not a lawyer. I know a couple of lawyers, but what do you think about that? I'm baffled to see that.
Well, I don't think. Well, one, they got the referral from Tish James. Number two, the people who would be bringing the charges are usually not going to be the political people. They're going to be for lack of a better word, the deep state, the ones who are always there. So, I mean, they're the people who do the audits. I think Wayne kind of set himself up for this, trying to save a few bucks, and unfortunately it's going to backfire on him, or fortunately. Going back to the ILA, I think you're seeing a little difference between the ILA and NRA proper with Jason Ouimet, a little bit, not a lot, but some, given the fact that he was a speaker at the most recent gun rights policy conference. NRA per se had not participated for a number of years. Now he's coming on board, along with GOA, FPC, etc. So, I mean, that's a good sign. And I don't know enough about the Q brace per se. My AR pistol actually doesn't have a brace, but it does have a padded recoil tube without the brace. It works just fine. And it's on a dedicated pistol lower. So I think I'm safe, but you want to see, I kind of agree with Rob. I mean, we need more clarity on the laws. Vagueness in a law is a way to overturn it, or in a regulation. I would love to see the Trump administration saying more than we support the Second Amendment. Listen to some of the congressmen like Matt Gaetz out of Florida, who kind of broke the news about this 3, 4, 5 months ago, saying that the ATF was looking to ban, as he put it, ban pistol braces. So Gaetz is a big supporter of Trump. Trump should be listening to him and to us, because we helped him get where he is.
And speaking of the president, of course, I imagine that the vast majority of the cheerleading at the meeting of the members is going to be all about reelecting the president. In fact, I think that's something they're counting on so that they can avoid the elephant in the room. And let's be honest, it's much easier to cheer for the president than it is to say, wow, we screwed up. So I'm curious if the board of directors will try to pacify us. And honestly, I'm very appreciative of the bylaws committee for making the director attendance policy a thing, but it's a policy, not the bylaws. So I'm still hesitant to say that they really did us a good thing by doing that. Of course, we had petitions circulating to try to get the NRA board of directors to have attendance at the meeting of the members by the bylaws, and that became a policy instead of a bylaw. So I'm a little worried that they've pacified us, and they're going to pacify us again. They're going to give us some little breadcrumb of, oh, Wayne will be gone sometime. Meanwhile, the attorney Brewer is going to be paid an exorbitant amount of fees to try to protect not only the NRA, but Wayne LaPierre. And of course, we already know that the NRA is basically saving Wayne LaPierre from jail. or at least that's my opinion. That's something that I hope would be brought up at the meeting of the members, of course. And by the way, Brewer being anti-gun lawyer, or well, having donated to Beto and Hillary and whatnot. There's so many things to be talked about at the meeting of the members, and I'm afraid that they'll kind of pacify us and give us a Trump cheerleading session. So that brings me to resolutions. Mr. Tait, last year you had one of the most amazing resolutions I think I've ever seen. It was spot on. You called out the audit committee right on point. I mean, that was, knowing what we know now in hindsight, you were absolutely 100% perfect with that resolution. Will you be doing a similar resolution this year?
I think it's time to. I think we need to figure out how that meeting's going to work. My expectation is that it is going to be a smoke blowing session. It's going to be rah-rah to reelect the president. It's going to be rah-rah for all the great things the NRA is doing. And then I think there's going to be parliamentary procedures to try and shut anything else out of the meeting. From what I've heard that, while the meeting starts at 9, the people are going to be lined up 2 hours early to fill the room to its COVID capacity with supporters of Wayne. And so it's going to be a challenge to get resolutions in front of the board. Now remember that any member can put any resolution in front. You just have to get them to the secretary. They have to be in writing with your name and your NRA member number on it. So to me, I think we need to have a concerted effort to say which specific resolutions we want to put in front of the members. But I think a repeat of what I did last year is called for, in particular with if you read the New York complaint and around the audit committee, the dereliction of duty in the audit committee is appalling. And that in the deposition, when the chair of the audit committee admits that he has not even read the New York law or has understood that he was responsible for making sure that the organization was in compliance with New York law, says that they all need to be ridden out on a rail.
And as I understand it, the chairman of the audit committee, who is now the first vice president, is also an attorney.
Oh yeah, but let's keep in mind he's from Texas, so we should definitely vote for him. He was reelected this year, and it just pisses me off to no end. Oh my gosh! Members Council of California doing their work, their paid work to electioneer. Oh my gosh! Let me go back to the candidates really quickly. The candidates for the 76th seat or position on the board, that 1 year term, which is going to be over with very soon, is RB Rocky Marshall Jr., Robert Wass, John Cushman, Jim Wallace, Craig Schwartz, Kevin Hogan, and of course, Mr. Tait. It is important for, I think, voting members to know that both Mr. Cushman and Mr. Tait ran by petition of the members last year. They were on the ballot because members petitioned that they get on the ballot. And of course, Mr. Tait is currently taking petitions for this next year's 2021's election. Mr. Tait, where can people send those petitions to? Oh my goodness, you're muted.
For the petitions, you can find them on my website, which is taitnra.com, TAITNRA.com. The link to the petition is there. I'm asking to have them back by October 31st. That way I can get them in on time. I actually had fun. We had a gun show in Pennsylvania yesterday, and I was able to get 164 signatures working the line for people waiting to get into the show. So I'm in good shape on, I'm over 3/4 of the signatures that I need. That's one of the things I'll be doing at the annual members meeting, is I will be getting signatures there as well. So as I'm trying to get people to vote for me for the 76th seat, I'll also be asking them to sign the petition so I can be back on the ballot for the 2021 election.
And I'm just going to come out and say it right now. If you are a person who votes for someone other than Frank Tait at the 76th director election in Tucson, you're an absolute Wayne LaPierre shill, and you should go to hell. All right. Now that I've said that,
how do you really feel?
Oh my gosh, the profanity is just boiling in me. I need to calm it down. Mr. Pincus, what do you think about resolutions? Obviously, you spoke so eloquently last year to the resolutions. Do you suppose that we'll see a lot of resolutions try to be shot down like it was last year?
Yeah, I would expect that it's going to be very hard to really get anything heard in terms of any official resolutions to get them voted on. We saw that the lengths to which the board is even willing to go to step out of their traditional role of observers and listeners at the meeting of the member to actually meeting the members to actually taking part in the meeting of the members to express, their feelings of wanting to keep everything a secret, wanting to keep everything behind closed doors, wanting to keep everything in the hands of the board, and not really allow the members, even the small number of members that are at the meeting, vote on these issues. I think that that's probably what we'll see again if we can get that far. However, I do think the most important things that happened last time were the members, the back and forth between members who were truly concerned about the future of the NRA and whether the NRA represents the average American gun owner or not, and the status quo, the old guard that really just wanted to protect their own personal interests and the interests of their cabal and of Wayne LaPierre. That was just made so starkly clear, more clear than it's ever been and maybe ever will be again at that meeting of the members. I think both sides are going into this one much more aware of the possibility of that fight and kind of how that fight will go and what that fight will be about. And obviously they hold all the cards to include stacking the room, limiting the attendance, where people are going to be seated, where the microphones are located, who has control of when the microphones are on or off. All of those things will be in their hands and I'm sure used to their advantage. So again, while I'm not expecting anything earth-shattering, I am expecting that they will have to clearly keep us from speaking. They will have to clearly act against the members being heard, as they already are. We talked about that in regard to the bylaws. The ways they're going to do it that day, I'm sort of prepared for anything. And I'm also prepared to be back on this podcast as well as many other media outlets talking about exactly what they did. Obviously, everyone from the New York State Attorney General's office to the IRS to the newest gun owner thinking about whether or not they should join the NRA or not, they're going to be watching very closely what happens in that meeting room. And the things that happen in that meeting room will get talked about, I'm sure, for months and years to come. So hopefully they'll be on the kind of behavior they were on during the winter meeting and trying to make members feel involved and welcome, and not the way they were a little over a year ago at the fall members meeting when they made us feel like it was very clear they did not want us there and they don't want us to be heard. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking back to last year at Indianapolis, Richard Childress, of course, was filling in for the president, who at the time, of course, Oliver North, as he did not attend. It's the role of the president to corral the annual meeting of the members. And of course, this year, Carolyn Meadows is the president and would hopefully fill that role. Now I say hopefully because while I don't agree with Miss Meadows at all, I believe that she's somewhat kind and fair, and she would certainly listen to members and not shut them down. If either the first vice president or second vice president instead controlled the meeting of the members, oh my gosh, I think that would just be an absolute travesty. I have no faith in Charles Cotton. I have no faith in Willis Lee. I think they're both absolutely horrible people. And yeah, I'm looking at the members meeting, unlike, of course, any time in the past. In the 149 years of the NRA, this is the most important meeting of the members that there has ever been. And it's also one of the most polarizing meeting of the members that there's ever been. Unlike the annual NRA annual meetings, you don't have the thousands of members that just decide to go in off the floor and go and listen to the meeting. You have two groups that will attend this meeting: those who are loyal to Wayne LaPierre and those who want reform. That's the only two persons who will attend, period. So this is very, very interesting. And I'm curious to what links, the loyalists, the LaPierre loyalists go to. Oh, now, obviously, I think they'll try to crowd the mics. If there's anything up for debate, I believe that they'll try to jump on those microphones and control the debate and try to push through some sort of action to dismiss or defer those resolutions to the board. I think there'll be a lot of resolutions that are superfluous, like we saw last year with some sort of resolution for Dan Alosh. Do you remember that one, John? It was something like Dan Alosh is the most amazing person.
And then there was something about somebody from Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one hope that I think we do have is that, yes, attendance will be limited. You have to have a ticket. But there's hope that many of us got our tickets at the moment. I mean, I was watching the countdown clock. I got mine within 30 seconds of it going live. Maybe through Facebook and Save the Second, a lot of people took advantage of that. Who knows? Let's hope so.
Yeah, I do know of 3 other folks that will be attending. Friends of mine, Miss Deborah, Jameson, Josh. There's several of those. Of course, you guys will be there as well. So I'm hopeful that we'll have some people that want to see the NRA reformed, and not just reformed for the sake of reform, but made strong, relevant, effective, and accountable for their actions. Yeah. So first and foremost, any of you who are going to Tucson, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and more thank you, because, well, honestly, everybody can whine and complain and cry about the NRA not being what it's supposed to be, but very few people take action. If you're taking action, you're amazing in my book. Now, obviously, we know what needs to happen. We need a change of leadership. If any of the board of directors are listening to this, please, for God's sake, try just nominate somebody. Nominate Pat McNamara, for crying out loud, and have a vote for Pat McNamara. I don't care who it is. Someone other than Wayne LaPierre, because first of all, if you're truly only going with LaPierre and having a unanimous vote for LaPierre, you're making yourself look foolish. The guy's about to be indicted by the IRS. And of course, the New York Attorney General is cleaning the NRA's whistle. Just, I mean, come on, guys. You got to have a different option. And Mr. Richardson, you mentioned a secession resolution. That seems like I'm sorry, secession. Goodness gracious.
Even though I live in North Carolina, I'm not a big fan of secession.
I'm so sorry. Goodness gracious. But no, that sounds brilliant to me. Do you care to elaborate on that anymore?
Sure. I mean, I'm using the pandemic as the background, plus Wayne's age. It's nothing anti-Wayne per se. It's just saying that I'm going to ask that, I haven't finished it, but I'm probably going to ask that the board deliver a draft policy or draft succession plan at the January meeting, with a formal succession plan at the next meeting of the members. The board, the executive, I'm probably going to say the executive committee, because that's where it literally come from. As things stand now, if Wayne, God forbid, I mean, I don't wish it on anybody, got COVID and died, Joe DeBergalis would be the acting CEO. And I don't think he's capable of it. And
yeah, I don't think he is either.
I mean, I agree with that.
And any good organization, any solid, healthy organization has a succession plan. Mm-hmm. Whether it was GE, whether it was any publicly traded corporation. If this was a publicly traded corporation, Wayne would have been gone 2 years ago or longer. I mean, it's time to get real. If there's a hint of scandal, the CEO is gone.
Yeah. But John, when you talk about succession plannings, I've been in business for a long time, and you always have a succession plan. You have your hit by a bus plan, and the succession plan usually goes 2 to 3 people deep in all the critical roles. So it's who are the potential successors? Are they inside? Are they outside? If you need to go outside for a successor, you identify the attributes that are appropriate for the outside candidate to have to be able to come in. Then you engage a search firm to go do that. But you have identified who your interims are. Like, I work for a company, my CEO needed to have major back surgery, and it was a 6-month prep, 3-month recovery. He said, I have to retire. I can't do this. And so the chairman of the board stepped in as an interim, and then we ran a search. Right now I have no faith in the president and the first and second vice president to step in and lead the organization. just like I have no faith in the current CEO. Is we need somebody, not just a succession plan. We need somebody who can lead the organization into the future, who has the you need the white knight to come in, to use the overstated phrase. Somebody that the members are going to believe in, and that the board can get behind. And I don't see the current executive committee having that capability, and I certainly don't see the current management team having that capability.
Yeah, and how many millions of times have I seen not one more dime until Wayne LaPierre is gone? I mean, my goodness. I mean, that's a mantra on all of social media. I don't care if it's Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, wherever. If somebody mentions the NRA or giving money to the NRA, I mean, it's huge. There's so many, I would estimate millions of members who have been so disenfranchised to leave the NRA and won't come back until there is new leadership.
I'll give you a point. I was at this gun show in Morgantown, PA yesterday. I talked to over 1,000 people. I got 164 signatures. I had more than that tell me used to be a member of the NRA, got tired of the fundraising solicitations, got tired of reading how my money was being misused. When Wayne's gone, let me know and I'll consider coming back. I heard that way more than I got signatures.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This morning I was helping one of my good friends with Silver Mountain Instruction, a TC training counselor, go through a few candidates for NRA basic pistol instructor. And so I asked him just in passing if any of them were familiar with the problems going on in the NRA. And just about every one of them, I think all but one, said that they were familiar. And the vast majority of them were not NRA members, but would become NRA certified instructors because they needed credentialing. So, I mean, there's not only the folks, outside of the NRA, but you now have instructors who are maintaining their instructor credentials, but have not, renewed their membership. Oh my goodness. Robert, what are you seeing as far as instructors at large? Are you seeing a lot of those folks just go completely against the NRA and go somewhere else?
Yeah, it's huge, right? Like, I mean, we know that part of the dysfunction at the NRA, the evidentiary dysfunction, is this idea that, 2 decades ago, it's hard to put any pinpoint on that they lobbied to get the NRA basic pistol program sort of as the default accepted CCW course around the country as the CCW revolution was happening in the 90s. But what's very, very clear is they never did one of two things. They never either went to the state's attorney general's office or any other regulatory agencies and said, look, we're a gun rights organization. We believe in constitutional carry. We don't think there should be a policy. Do not list us as the people that are complicit in your requirement of mandatory training before somebody gets a CCW. They didn't do that. They also didn't go in and say, hey, our NRA basic pistol course has nothing whatsoever to do with concealed carry. It doesn't hit the skill sets that are necessary and should not be the basis of any training, mandatory or voluntary, for people going responsibly armed into the public and expecting they'll be able to defend themselves or others. They didn't do that. They also didn't come up with a program that was widely propagated and successful, meaningful to the instructors to replace the NRA basic pistol, that they then could go back and say to the states, hey, we don't agree with the mandatory training, but if you're going to have it, at least take this course, which is geared towards defensive use of a firearm and not nomenclature and basic marksmanship like the NRA basic pistol course is. So despite the fact that they didn't do any of that, or because they didn't do any of that, what we're left with is in many states, and still as a legacy at many ranges, and just in the sort of the ethos of a lot of people's community inertia, I guess, thought inertia, the NRA basic pistol course is almost a required certification to have to be able to teach at a lot of ranges, or to be able to meet the requirements of a lot of states' CCW course requirements for the mandatory training. Now that's going away. Obviously, we now have over 15 states that are constitutional carry where you don't need to go through mandatory training. There are a lot of states now that have language inside of their codes that allow for other courses other than just the NRAs. But there are still a few that are very tied to the NRA, and that's something that we see changing. And we see a lot of people who are begrudgingly or reluctantly maintaining their NRA certifications just so they can teach at certain ranges, just so they can get There used to be a thing where that was the only way to get insurance. A lot of people had that perception, which isn't true anymore at all. And then, of course, to meet the state requirements. So we're seeing other programs start to apply very specifically or start to change the way their companies are set up or the way their organizations operate so that they can meet the requirements that were written by states to essentially block everybody but the NRA out. So there is a movement there. But what's important really is the attitude. I mean, just the idea for the NRA training division or for the NRA as a whole, that there are potentially thousands of instructors out there that don't want to be associated with your organization, but are doing it because they're sort of blocked from being successful in this community and from helping other people learn how to be responsibly armed unless they play ball with you. That's a reprehensible position to be in. And that's a position they seem very comfortable with.
Yeah, no joke. Hopefully that changes with new leadership and training and reformation. I do know that the former chair of the Education and Training Committee was, a stellar guy that was probably going to see a lot of that reformed. Unfortunately, he was removed from all of his committee assignments. Oh, it burns me up. The current chair, one of the vice presidents, is not a good person, in my honest opinion. Now, gentlemen, I want to change gears just for a second. We're going to Tucson, Arizona. I love Tucson. Tucson's a great place to be if you spend time, if you're an aviation nerd like myself. Pima Air Museum is top notch. It's amazing. The Titan Missile Museum, amazing. All around the country, there's a lot of different requirements because of COVID, right? So you do need to be aware that if you're going to Tucson, you're going to have to wear a mask. That's commonplace in many places, but you're going to have to wear a mask a lot. A lot of the outdoor venues, of course, still require it. So one of the venues that we're looking for to try to rally, have a pregame powwow, if you will, on Friday. We're looking to meet at Udall Park. That's UDALL Park. We're currently looking about 5 p.m. local time there at Udall Park. The problem is currently that the Pima County has restrictions in place preventing a gathering of more than 50 people without permits. And the problem is those permits needed to be requested about a month ago, or actually more than a month ago. So I'm going to see what we can pull off. We may have to do a socially distance, drive-by. Hey, here's the latest going on. But we're looking at 5 p.m. at Udall Park. Of course, that's also during the voting. Voting for the 76th director is still going on going to be going on Friday, October 23rd from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. So if you go vote and come hang out with us for just a little bit, wear a mask, practice social distancing, COVID stuff. We obviously don't want to cause more problems. We want to try to solve problems. So, be responsible in that area, even though it's frustrating as all get out. Look for more to come on when we're going to be rallying, obviously, at that pregame party, but also what time we're going to try to get in line to get inside. So the voting is reopened at 8 a.m. on October 24th at 8 a.m. Saturday. The members meeting starts at 9 o'clock. So at some point, and then they're going to try to fill the room. And I guarantee you they're going to be trying to position themselves in the most strategic, tactically prudent way that they can get to the microphones and control the meeting. So we want to be able to be aware of that and to respond accordingly. I've got stickers for folks. I've got stickers for Save the Second and a couple of buttons. First come, first serve. So I'd love to get you a sticker and button. It's out of my own pocket. So yeah, please take a sticker from me. If you want to have a mask that has a few logos on it to try to get your point across, I'm trying to find a couple of entities that can get mask out with a printed logo. Looks like the cost is around $8. If you're interested in that, send us a message on Facebook. I'd appreciate that. Of course, if we're going to be wearing masks, we might as well make it say something, right? Oh, I assume that the Way and LaPierre loyalists will probably be doing something similar. And if you're curious about writing resolutions, I've got a few drafts. Of course, Mr. Richardson has a draft. Mr. Tait has a draft. If you want to get in on that and look at how that process goes. Let's jump into the Facebook group, the Friends of Save the Second group, and let's try to figure that out and coordinate a bit better. This is the next 2 weeks are going to be very interesting for the NRA. And if you want to be a part of it, if you want to be a part of reforming the NRA, we certainly want you and need you and applaud you wanting to make the NRA better. Gentlemen, we're almost at the hour mark. We will wrap it up with your final thoughts, but also I want to make sure everybody knows that this Wednesday, myself, Andy Lander, who is half the man he used to be, the guy's lost a lot of weight, and Anthony Garcia, we're all going to have a follow-up to this podcast and hopefully try to pregame more. So, this is just getting started. It's crunch time, so to speak. So, gentlemen, final thoughts. Mr. Pincus, we'll start with you first. Go for it.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation. I'm glad that we have people thinking about this. I know I have a lot of people who've been asking me kind of like, hey, what's the deal? What's going to happen? We never know. We don't know what's going to happen. Our best laid plans are kind of irrelevant because we're going to have to be very, very flexible, very, very nimble, just like we were, a year and a half ago at the members meeting. So if you care, show up. I think it's interesting. It's a pretty remote location, to be honest. Obviously, that's going to affect the voting for the 76th seat. It's going to be harder to get people there that don't have to be there anyway. And the people that have to be there anyway, we know, are largely in Wayne LaPierre's pocket. And they're going to vote for whoever they're told to vote for, as always happens with the 76th seat. So it is important. If you're in Arizona and you can't get there Saturday, but you can go down and vote Friday for Frank Tait. If you care about reform, do that. If you have friends in Arizona who can get down there, if you have nothing else going on that weekend, you can get down there. Keep in mind, we might get blocked out of speaking. We might get blocked out of sitting down. I can't imagine them not having enough seats in a COVID compliant way to go with the number of tickets they sold, but who knows with this crowd. So, be prepared for literally nothing to happen and for you to personally be able to do nothing more than vote for the 76th seat and then talk loudly and clearly about the way members were treated afterwards. That may be the worst case scenario, but making the best out of it might just simply be showing up to be shunned. Obviously I did that before at a board meeting. I'm perfectly willing to fly down to Arizona and do it again. And I hope other people also care enough to show up and just give it a good college try.
Absolutely. Mr. Pincus, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And that's excellent advice. Hey, we don't know what the future holds, but all we can do is improvise, adapt, and overcome. Mr. Tait, final thoughts.
Again, I really appreciate the opportunity to share here today, and I echo Rob's comments. To me, I think the fight is not just at this meeting in Tucson. We need to keep the fight going into 2021. That's why I'm running for I'm getting petitions to get back on the ballot for 2021. So if you can help me out by downloading my petition, signing it, and mailing it back to me by the end of October, it's taitnra.com, TAITNRA.com. We're in this for the long haul, and I appreciate all your support.
I very much appreciate you, Mr. Tait, especially being the only candidate for the NRA Board of Directors to raise his hand. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Tait. Now, Mr. Richardson, I just know that you're going to be covering this on your blog, and I'm very curious to see not only the rumors. By the way, your last post on the rumors, fantastic post. Certainly piques my interest. I know you're going to be following this more and blogging about it. So beyond your final thoughts, hey man, I'm curious what you're going to be doing. Are you going to do any video blogs or just strictly typing it, or perhaps the Polite Society podcast is going to talk about it?
Well, I think basically I'm going to be writing about it. I don't know if recording devices would be allowed in the room. They might be, they may not be. But I want to echo what Rob said, that just be prepared for anything. And number 2, vote for Frank. Though I did have a comment on my blog that there was another Frank Tait who was an Australian bushranger, which was kind of an outlaw of some sort. So vote for the outlaw. Vote for Frank Tait.
That is so wonderful. I love it. Now, of course, this Mr. Tait isn't exactly an outlaw, but he was smacking a buffalo at what was it, 1,100 yards, Mr. Tait?
Yeah, 1,123 yards at the NRA Whittington Center. I was I was honored to be invited to be part of a group out there, and that was a lot of fun. Although when I did it earlier in the year, I had a nice 30-06, and it was relatively straightforward, although the weather was a bit dicey. This time I was shooting a 270 with the wrong ammo, but I still made it work.
That's amazing. I haven't got to do as much shooting as I wanted to this year. Although I've done several competitions, I've got a competition coming up this Sunday, so a week from today. So if you're in the Colorado Springs area and you'd like to shoot IDPA, hey, get in contact with me and let's go compete, have a good time, safe time, shooting our carry guns. Oh, yeah. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And by the way, there's so many people that have commented, and I haven't been able to even really look at the comments. So if you've commented, thank you so much. I'll try to get to your comments after this, and of course, try to upload this just as soon as I can to our podcast streaming service. Folks, it's crunch time. It's time to do some good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We'll get to you on Wednesday again, and boy, we got to reform the NRA. Take care, folks.